An unprecedented move by state lawmakers leads the Texas Supreme Court to delay an execution.
He was shocked. He thanked his supporters. He praised God. He claimed his innocence.
We look closer at the legal back and forth with a man's life on the line, and why it could bring a death row inmate to testify at the Capitol. Fireworks in the first and only face-off between Ted Cruz and Colin Allred, the moves they're making to reach the undecided right before the start of early voting. Governor Abbott said the state removed thousands of non-citizens from voter rolls, but the numbers tell a different story. An investigation looks closer at who got caught up in the purge.
Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hello and thank you for joining us. I'm Ryan Chandler. Josh Hinkle is on assignment. Well, it's the day before the start of early voting in Texas, and normally we start the program talking about the battles on the ballot, and we'll get to that. But first, a dramatic, historic legal saga at the Capitol and in the courts, one that is still developing with a man's life on the line. Robert Robertson was set to die on Thursday. He was convicted in 2003 of murdering his 2-year-old daughter, but the Texas Supreme Court has halted his execution. It came after a flurry of novel legal maneuvers, a Texas House committee forcing the court's hand and extending Robertson's life. A bipartisan majority of lawmakers joining with medical experts to say Robertson is likely innocent. They're looking into questions surrounding Robertson's conviction, and their search for answers may bring a death row inmate to testify at the Capitol for the first time ever. A Hail Mary miracle.
He was shocked, to say the least. He praised God and he thanked his supporters.
A last-hour Supreme Court ruling reviving Robert Robertson's chance at life.
It is very clear that he needs a new trial.
A team of lawmakers by his side as the clock ran out on what would have been his last day. Adamant in his innocence and demanding a new trial with new medical evidence.
While he is still breathing, there is still time to bring the truth to light.
After over 20 years in solitary confinement, Robertson will have the biggest stage in Texas, testifying in person at the Capitol on Monday.
It was made clear to us that there was no precedent for what we were doing. I want him to be able to tell his story, what his life was like prior to this, what the investigation looked like through the lens of his lens.
Lawmakers are investigating whether courts are properly following Texas's 2013 junk science law, which allows for new trials in cases where scientific evidence is later found faulty. Experts say the medical records for Robertson's 2-year-old daughter, Nikki, indicate she could have died of natural causes, not homicide.
When we have government exercise the greatest power that it has, the power to take a life, there must be absolutely unassailable proof and no doubt that a grave and heinous crime occurred, and that's simply not the case.
Several Texas lawmakers met with Robertson in the days before his scheduled execution, and some were outside the prison on Thursday night when Robertson learned of his stay. One of those lawmakers is Austin State Representative John Bucy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
It's not lost on me the gravity of the fact that Robertson woke up on Friday morning. And that is only because of some novel creative efforts by the legislature and, of course, the work of the team that has been working on his behalf for years. Just take me through what it was like at the prison when we learned of this news of this day.
You know, Representative Hull and I were there. We wanted to be there, having met with him and gotten to spend time a few weeks ago knowing him. We wanted him to know that we were there and that there was a team fighting for him on his behalf, no matter the outcome yesterday. Our intent was to be present for the execution if it had happened and make sure we were telling his story. Throughout the evening being there, it was, a roller coaster of emotions. We had hope. We knew so many people were fighting for him. We believe this is an innocent man and that this execution shouldn't happen. There were times throughout the night as it went back and forth that we were getting very concerned that the execution would move forward and that we would have to go be a witness to that and then go talk about it and what it meant for the state of Texas.
It's so interesting to watch how this effort has coalesced because it's brought together a very interesting group of lawmakers, some of the most conservative members of the House and more progressives like yourself. What do you think the bipartisan nature of this says about the effort?
Look, I think it shows that when the Texas House is coordinated and working together, we can get things done. A majority of us, over 80 of us, signed a letter asking for this to stop and to slow this down and look at this case more closely. when you look at the spectrum of who's behind it, there's a lot of us that have hardly worked together on issues before, but having looked at this case closely, we knew we could work together and we should work together on this cause because it's so worthy of fighting for justice in this case.
A bipartisan majority of the House has signed on believing that he is possibly innocent, working to delay his execution. But there are some voices of this conversation that I think it's interesting are so far absent. Yeah. One is the Senate. We haven't heard anything from even the most progressive senators as of last check. And the governor. He's the one person who can issue a 30-day reprieve or clemency. Why do you think we haven't heard from them yet?
You know, I don't know why we haven't heard from the governor yet. I will say, though, because of the ongoing deliberations, he wasn't forced to have to make a final decision. I'm thankful that he still has the 30-day pause if it's needed in a future time in this case. But I hope with the time that Robertson now still has, that he and his staff will continue to look more thoroughly at this case. I think if he looks at it the way the 80 plus of us in the legislature have, he will agree that we either need to stop this entirely or at least look at another trial and look at the evidence more closely.
What is the best case scenario in your mind for Robertson?
Well, I think the key investigator said it, having looked at it myself, that we should apologize to this man and send him home. I think that's the best case scenario. But I also think another day in court to get to look at the science and truly look at it, not to push it away or act like it's hearsay, but actually look at the evidence. I think everyone that does that will change their mind about this case.
Representative John Bucy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
And this is Robertson's second execution date. In 2016, the Court of Criminal Appeals halted his execution just 1 week before he was scheduled to go to the death chamber. The appeals court sent the case back to the trial court in Anderson County. And Wednesday, the prosecutor in that hearing testified via Zoom before the House Criminal Jurisprudence Committee. Anderson County District Attorney Allison Mitchell said Robertson's attorneys had the chance to present their new evidence to a judge at a hearing in 2021. Mitchell said the judge rejected Robertson's claims. Governor Abbott said the state removed thousands of non-citizens from voter rolls, but an investigative report shows some citizens were caught in that purge. We sit down with one of the reporters behind that story. The first and only face-off between the two men who want to represent you in the U.S. Senate.
Why did you not support that, Senator?
It's a great question. Can I take his time and
No,
answer?
you can't have my time.
But
what
he
I'm
asked me a
saying,
question, I don't
no,
want to answer.
you can jump in after me.
How the debate is helping candidates reach the undecided right before the start of early voting.